Samsun, Türkiye, May 14, 2026. A catastrophic weather event has struck northern Turkey's Black Sea region, leaving a trail of destruction, submerged neighborhoods, and crippled infrastructure in its wake. On Tuesday, May 12, 2026, an unprecedented cloudburst unleashed torrential rains over the Samsun province. The absolute epicenter of this meteorological disaster was the Havza district, frequently referenced in initial regional dispatches alongside broader provincial reports, where local waterways mutated from calm channels into raging torrents within mere minutes. According to official data released by the Disaster and Emergency Management Authority (AFAD), municipal directorates and meteorologists, a massive volume of precipitation fell in an incredibly compressed time frame. The sudden accumulation completely overwhelmed the region's geographical defenses and civic infrastructure. The Havza stream and the Tersaken Creek, which cut directly through the urban core of Havza, burst their banks late Tuesday night. The resulting flash flood transformed historic town squares, bustling commercial zones, and dense residential blocks into deep, muddy lakes. As the dawn rose on Wednesday and operations continued through Thursday, May 14th, the full, harrowing scale of the devastation became painfully clear. Entire rows of vehicles were carried down avenues by raging currents. Ground floors and basements were completely filled with muddy water, and emergency rescue personnel worked deep into the night to extract stranded citizens. While regional authorities have confirmed with profound relief that no fatalities have been recorded, at least 12 individuals have been hospitalized with various injuries. The event has reignited urgent national conversations regarding climate resilience, urban planning along vulnerable waterways, and the unique geographical fragility of Turkey's Black Sea coastline. The atmospheric instability that triggered the disaster had been brewing over the Black Sea for several days, driven by a collision of warm marine air masses and a sudden, steep drop in upper altitude temperatures. However, local residents in Havza report that nothing in the early evening forecast predicted the sheer velocity and violence of the storm that arrived on Tuesday, May 12. According to local merchants and shopkeepers in the heart of Havza, the initial rainfall began as a typical spring shower, but escalated with terrifying speed into an unrelenting wall of water. Within an hour of the cloudburst's peak, structural drainage networks failed completely. The water had nowhere to go but down the steep topography characteristic of the Samsun province, channeling directly into the basin where the district's primary streams flow. By 2200 hours TRT, Turkey time, the Havza stream had transformed into an uncontrollable torrent. Eyewitnesses described a deep, low rumble echoing through the valleys just before a massive wave of mud, uprooted trees, and urban debris breached the embankments. The floodwaters breached the district center with a depth ranging between 50 to 80 centimeters almost instantly, and in several low-lying topographies, the water level rapidly approached a full meter. The spatial distribution of the flood damage paints a grim picture of the vulnerability of Havza's urban center. The fast-moving waters spread rapidly from the banks of the overflowing creeks, targeting the historic and economic hubs of the town. The absolute focal point of the public inundation was Cumhuriyet Square, the primary civic space in Havza. Video footage captured by stranded citizens on their mobile phones from upper-story balconies showed the vast square completely swallowed by a brown, swirling lake. The square in front of the Havza Cultural Center, traditionally a site for community gatherings, political events and cultural exhibitions, was entirely submerged. The force of the current in this open space was strong enough to dislodge heavy stone pavers and tear down municipal fixtures. The residential heart of the disaster lay in the Boslivler and K neighborhoods. In these densely populated districts, the flood arrived with such speed that families had no time to salvage possessions from their basements or ground floors. Thousands of ground floor apartments and storage units were filled to the ceiling with water within less than 20 minutes. Retail storefronts, bakeries, automotive repair shops, and local markets saw their entire inventories ruined as muddy water smashed through glass windows and roll-up metal shutters. One of the most visually stunning and dangerous aspects of the May 12th flood was its impact on transportation. Dozens of vehicles parked on the roadsides of the K neighborhood were lifted by the current like toys. Vehicles were seen colliding with one another, spinning uncontrollably in the current, and being pinned against concrete bridge pillars or building facades. Heavy steel garbage dumpsters and industrial storage containers were swept away, acting as battering rams that caused severe secondary structural damage to storefronts and utility poles downstream. The vital intercity highway connecting the metropolitan center of Samsun to the national capital of Ankara was temporarily closed to traffic. Floodwaters reached critical depths across the asphalt, stranding transport trucks and passenger buses, forcing highway police to divert all regional logistics. As the floodwaters peaked late Tuesday night and sustained through the early hours of Wednesday, May 13th, emergency services faced an extraordinary logistical challenge. The immediate priority was the preservation of human life in an environment where active electricity grids, fast currents, and hidden underwater debris pose lethal threats. In an official address to the media, the governor of Samsun confirmed that despite the structural ferocity of the flood, miraculous fortune and rapid interventions ensured that no lives were lost. A total of 12 individuals were admitted to local medical facilities, primarily the Havza State Hospital. The nature of the injuries reflected the chaos of the night. Several citizens suffered contusions and minor fractures from being struck by floating debris while attempting to secure their property. Elderly residents trapped in unheated upper floors or partial submersions required treatment for exposure. Wounds caused by broken glass and twisted metal as residents evacuated flooded ground floor flats in total darkness. The governor noted that while some of the injured were brought in via ambulances and specialized off-road rescue vehicles, several managed to reach the hospital independently once the initial torrent subsided. None are currently in critical condition. The deployment of first responders was immediate and extensive. Teams from AFAD, the Metropolitan and District Fire Departments, localized police units, and non-governmental search and rescue organizations worked in absolute unison. One particular incident caught on camera summarized the peril faced by locals. A truck driver, caught in the sudden rise of the Tersaken Creek waters on an industrial road, was forced to climb out of his cabin and stand precariously on top of his truck's cargo bed. As the swirling, debris-laden water threatened to tip the vehicle, a coordinated team of firefighters used an extended mechanical ladder and safety harnesses to extract him just moments before the water reached the vehicle's windshield. Elsewhere in the Boslivler neighborhood, rescue teams used inflatable Zodiac boats to navigate the narrow, flooded streets, systematically checking ground floor windows and pulling terrified residents, infants, and pets out of inundated structures to safety. On Wednesday, May 13th, as the torrential rain systems finally migrated away from the interior of Samsun toward the open waters of the Black Sea, the water levels in the Haşiasman and Tersaken streams began to recede. However, the retreating waters revealed a landscape completely altered by mud and structural failure. The flood left behind a thick, suffocating layer of alluvial mud and clay, measuring up to 30 centimeters deep across Cumhuriyet Square and adjacent avenues. This mud has presented a massive challenge to cleanup crews. As the sun came out, the mud began to dry and harden, threatening to permanently clog the subterranean storm drain networks if not immediately cleared. Because the floodwaters mixed with ruptured sewage lines and commercial waste, the mud carries a significant biological hazard, prompting health officials to issue warnings regarding masks and protective gear. The infrastructure of Havza has suffered a heavy blow. The force of the water undermined underground cabling and destroyed electrical transformers, causing widespread power outages across several neighborhoods. Portions of the district were also cut off from clean drinking water, due to sediment infiltration at local filtration plants. In response to the emergency, the district governorate announced the immediate suspension of all primary and secondary education. Schools in Havza were closed for at least one day, with closures extended in heavily impacted sectors, to allow facilities to be evaluated for structural safety, and to permit municipal workers to focus entirely on clearing the roads. The catastrophic event of May 12, 2026, is not an isolated anomaly, but rather part of a deeply concerning trend affecting Türkiye's northern coastline. To understand why a storm could so quickly cripple an entire district center, environmental scientists and civil engineers point to a compounding mix of geography, meteorology, and human development. The Black Sea region of Türkiye is defined by its dramatic, steep mountains that rise almost immediately from the sea coast or narrow river valleys. When a cloudburst occurs over these highlands, The water does not absorb into the soil gradually. Instead, the steep slopes act as natural funnels, accelerating the runoff down into the valley floors where towns like Havza are situated. Experts argue that traditional municipal drainage models are no longer sufficient to handle modern weather patterns. The rapid expansion of urban surfaces, roads, sidewalks, parking lots, and building foundations creates an impermeable barrier to rainwater. When natural soil is replaced with concrete, the volume of water directed into streams like the Havza increases exponentially, leading to instant surges that overwhelm concrete retaining walls. Climatologists analyzing the Black Sea basin emphasize that rising sea surface temperatures are fueling more energetic atmospheric systems. Warmer water results in greater evaporation, creating massive reservoirs of moisture in the lower atmosphere. When these systems hit the cooler air masses over the northern Turkish mountains, they release historic amounts of rain in minutes rather than days. The Great Flood of May 12, 2026, in Havza, Samsun, will be remembered as a stark reminder of the power of nature and the volatile realities of the 21st century climate. While the absence of fatalities stands as a testament to the bravery of emergency responders and the rapid response of the community, the sight of floating cars in Cumhuriyet Square and submerged homes in Boslivler leaves no room for complacency. As Havza begins the long, difficult process of rebuilding its streets, washing away the mud, and restoring its power grids, the broader lesson for Türkiye is clear. Urban centers must adapt to a world of more frequent and severe weather anomalies. The engineering of tomorrow must prioritize the widening of riverbeds, the implementation of permeable urban surfaces, and the creation of early warning systems capable of giving citizens hours, rather than minutes, to escape the rising tide. Until then, the resilient people of Samsun stand together, shoveling away the remnants of a historic deluge and rebuilding their lives from the ground up.